Happy Tuesday, everybody. My name is Andy Elliott, Realtor in Williamson County, Tennessee, and I'm with my best bud, Rodney Wilds, loan officer, First Bank, also in Williamson County, Tennessee. How are you, bud?
Fantastic. How about that introduction? I feel like I need a baseball bat and I'm going to home plate or something. Fixing
That's
to hit a home run.
sliding in. He's coming in. He's coming in. I tell you, this weather is, I can live with this weather.
Yes, it's nice.
For
Mid
anybody.
70s, when I've been outside getting into maybe low 80s or something, humidity's down. It is, yes.
It is nice. I had a guy tell me one time that he considers this part of the year the free utility time because he just shuts the AC off, leaves the windows open, and it's like your utilities drop down to $7, for the month,
Yeah.
So, in terms of real estate, there's stuff going on. There's stuff going on. And I believe one of our principal topics in the beginning is going to be with Jay Powell, which he's an important figure. And then we've got Trump that's beaten on him. And I think Trump actually fired one of the Fed governors today. I think they're out, That's probably a little message sending. So, and I've got, we've introduced this new little segment I call Off the Top, whereas I really throw a curveball at Rodney and we just have a conversation like if we were talking over a newspaper, something like that. So let's jump in, and we're going to start with bingo. There you go. The idea that it's a buyer's market and nobody's buying. And what I noticed first was underneath this video, which there was a person that was being interviewed, but somehow got on the ad. Nonetheless, it says, until real estate is improved, we're not going to be able to celebrate any victory in this economy. That's kind of a daunting thing. The industry that Rodney and I have chosen is a really big part of the U.S. economy. How much of the economy does this is real estate responsible for, Rodney? Is it 20% or 25% or something like that?
I think it's more than that. But it's definitely kind of what drives, really, as they say, in and out of a recession, the homes, the real estate market.
Yeah,
So it,
I mean
drives the economy in the recessions and out of them. So,
Yep. And so far, although this has been a tough year, I get that. Nobody's doubting that. But we're holding steady, and like Rodney says, kind of dragging along the bottom a little bit. I think that's where you're getting at. But at least we're being consistent. But here's what we do know, and this I can confirm because I've got listings, and I'm a little bit surprised. One of them in particular that's been on the market coming up on a couple of weeks, and that's a surprise because it's in a price range in the 400s, and I was expecting it to be a little quicker than that. Now, the things that are going against the market, if you're in real estate these days, is the pragmatic part of it is it's at the end of the summer. Things tend to slow down at the end of the summer. We're getting ready for, what is it, Labor Day is coming up this weekend, and so people are they're on vacation mode a little bit. But then when we get into September, things will pick up just a little bit, because then there's people start thinking about time to move. It's cooler and stuff like that. But I guess what I'm saying is I'm a little surprised that it's doing what this headline says, which is it is a buyer's market. At least it is here in Nashville, including Williamson County. It's a buyer's market and nobody is buying. Where's Jerome Powell? So let's just dive in real quick. So if you've flipped through the real estate pages lately or tried to pull up Redfin or Zillow, big deals, something's glaringly obvious. Nobody's moving and nobody's buying homes right now. I'm going to tell you right now, that's a hyperbole. That's not true. Nobody is way too strong, but it's slower than we're used to. So recently, I took a glance at Zillow at one of the hottest markets in Florida, which is Route 30A in the Panhandle. my favorite place on earth to go. I'm telling you, you like 38, don't you, Rodney?
Yes, sir. It's
You bet
nice.
Seaside. You betcha, man. Where it was almost impossible to see a red dot of something for sale, it now looks like a heat map for a B-52 stealth bomber just lit up the red dots and bunker busters. I got to take a look at that. Not that I could do much about it, but that's interesting. So we've got homes sitting in the market for weeks or months with major price reductions, while would-be buyers stare at high mortgage rates, stagnant sales, and some places they thought they bought thinking that work from home rules would last forever. That deserves a couple of seconds. That the rules changed on that big time. We've talked about that over the last few years, where in a time where work from home was required almost, now they've changed the rules, and employers are saying, come back to the office. We need you to come back to the office. Come on now. There we go. Hang on. It'll come. Anyway, there it is. Okay. So why it feels like everyone's frozen. You'd think summer would spring things to life, but over the summer checklists, get rid of that, thank you. But over a summer of, bear with me, folks. Thank you. Crickets. You'd think summer would spring things to life, but over the summer 2025, crickets. June's existing home sales clocked in at just 3.93 million, 2.7% drop from May, and trending water year over year. That's the slowest pace since September. Meanwhile, new home sales barely budged at 627 annualized, still 6% below the June 2024. It's like everyone hit the pause button after watching the latest million dollar listing show on Bravo. I would you don't have to tell me this, Rodney, but I'm asking, is it a little slower I guess it would go to logic that it's a little slower in the mortgage business. Is that the case from what you're hearing?
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, we're actually down from projections, which is, we've been on projections all year long, but September looks like the first month we're lower than normal, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense.
September, yeah, it definitely does. It's kind of weird that September projections are a little bit lower.
Yeah, and I'm curious. I'm gonna guess that our refis are not terribly popular these days.
They haven't been. I mean, it's for people who are having to do something, with maybe some higher interest rate debt or something like that, or just want to use the house equity to do something.
Right. Right. But that used to be just a frantic thing, and it's changed.
Yeah, when the rates were 3%, they couldn't wait to get you waited in line to get those done.
Well, it's a new normal, and
It is.
it is what it is, and that happens to be the title of today's show. So we're seeing a phenomenon called, excuse me, golden handcuffs. People aren't moving not because they love their homes, but because they can't afford to leave. Jobs are cooling, relocation perks are rare, and many hold equity lines in homes they bought years ago in COVID, low interest rates, and they simply can't pivot without sacrificing financial stability. It's a market held hostage by its own past, and unemployment rates hovering near 4.3% aren't helping the problem. And to boot, there are so many people who dreamed of never returning to the day-to-day office grind with their mountain or beach getaway. Now the boss recalled everyone back to office. That's twice they mentioned that, so it's a kind of a big deal. Sure, inventory is technically up. Active listings rose 24%. It's up about 22% in the Nashville area. Active listings are up 24% year over year in July, hitting a post-pandemic high, but higher inventory hasn't helped that much. That's because affordability, not availability, remains the choke point. And you've been preaching that for a couple of years, Rodney. You're dead on with that. So meanwhile, in the Sun Belt, markets like Austin and Miami, price collapses are already underway, nearly 15 to 19% drops since 2022. Now, we're not having that here. We're in the Sun Belt. We're not having that. Austin and down there in Florida are sort of specific examples. So Yet that doesn't mean buyers are flooding in, not when paying tens of thousands of dollars more in insurance and property costs have become the new normal. The average 30-year fixed rate mortgage was 658. Is that about what is it today? Something like that.
Yeah, I think it's maybe a little bit lower than that. I've had some.
Ooh, nice. That's really good. Hi, Ange. How you doing? Now I can listen on the way. Yes, good to see you, girly girl. This may look good on paper, but back in December, industry forecasts said 6% rates could unlock 6.2 million households. Did that a few weeks ago. The proposed number of new home buyers, if it went down to 5.5 and 6, and it was kind of awe-inspiring, really. Um, I mean, if it does drop like that, buckle up, because I mean, the attrition on real estate agents has been significant. I wonder, I wonder if that's like that. And does attrition, side question, sidebar, does attrition affect lenders like it does real estate agents? When things get bad, do people leave the business?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, I would say it's almost at the same rate. I would have to assume, both are sales, both are hand in hand. So
Yep, yep. It's because it's been significant. I don't know I can't tell you what exactly the numbers are, but it's significant. The catch rates aren't there yet, and even if they fall to that benchmark, affordability issues run deeper. So here's the bottom line on this particular. We're not quite yet there. Can Jerome Powell come to the rescue? The short answer is yes. Donald Trump has been dealing out almost a weekly dose of punishment on Fed Chair Jay Powell, and rightly so. Ooh, must be a Fox News, it is. And rightly so, while mortgage rates may not be tied to the Fed and more closely linked to the 10-year Treasury yield, influenced by a broader range of factors, Powell can spur a chain reaction to start the spin cycle of lower interest rates in America. Americans need it more than anything right now, or a number of stalled sellers on the market will continue to climb on a monthly basis. The other thing about sellers is there's a lot of it used to be that people would list their home, and when you'd go in there as a realtor, you'd give them what's a realistic price, you'd comp it, and now you have to comp things within like 30 days, not 3 months, because it's the market's so much different. And a lot of times, sellers would say, "Well, let's just test this out." It would kind of high. Would be a high number. Man, oh man, the people that are trying that are getting no action and they're bailing. They're delisting at pretty remarkable rates. So sorry about this
yeah,
busy website. I can't do it with my reader mode in this one. But during a recent congressional testimony, Powell said it wasn't obvious that lowering interest rates would reduce housing costs, arguing that long-term supply shortages was the source of elevated prices. I'm going to ask you about that, Rodney. Does that What do you think about that statement?
you know, I the first thing I hear is like, I just respect. Not that I agree with him, right? I'll go on record saying I felt like he should have been lowering them, 2 years ago,
Yeah,
but uh, it's somebody that spends all day, every day in this stuff and has for their whole lifetime. I kind of give him the benefit of the doubt
yeah, yeah,
um, on things like that, just because that I don't spend every day in this stuff. I have a market service that tries to keep me abreast of and informed, because it's harder, with my job. I got to stay in touch with mortgage rules and all that stuff. So the market would be like a whole nother job. So I give him the benefit of the doubt when I hear something like that. Because I was just thinking that myself before you asked me. It's funny that you asked that.
yeah. I mean, I agree with you too. I mean, he's not a stupid man, and he is able to see things that I'm not qualified to even look at. Meaning I wouldn't know what to do with it if I did. So I mean, I think that we'll just have to see. We'll just
Yeah.
have to see. So to finish up is, however, and I think that this is important. However, that narrative of inventory is aggressively flipping, and the reality is that some people aren't moving because of rising job uncertainty and being unwilling to get out of their 3% mortgage rate and move into a new house at 6.6%. It's incredibly difficult to make the move to a bigger house with those two factors looming for most buyers. I, for one, will not leave where I'm at unless I can't imagine what it is just based on the rate that I have. I mean, if I got, this is not going to happen, but if I got married and whatever, and things really dramatically changed, I suppose I would be in one of those situations where you have to, you'd have to. But outside of that huge changes, 2.7 is keeping me put. I'm not going no place. Thank you, Rodney.
Yeah, I mean, that's the golden handcuffs.
It is. It is. So we're going to get off of that. So the bottom line is it's time for Powell to stop pontificating about when to lower interest rates and start acting. If he doesn't, Americans will ultimately be a day late and much more than $1 short. So the punchline to that particular article is do something or get off the pot. That's what that is. So. Okay, Jay, let's do that. So we know what's up now. We know what's up now. Here we come. It's
Let's
time
do
for
it.
Riff. Oh, yeah.
All right. Let's get into the riff. Is this mortgage affordable with my finances? I love questions like this. This is what we do. Purchasing a $400,000 house and putting 20% down with 6.25% mortgage. Income is 145 with take home 8,000. Mortgage would be 3,000 with taxes and insurance. I've done pretty well over the past few years with savings and have some emergency funds. No other debt. Well, first I'll say he's done really well. To save up, whenever you're buying 400,000 and you're going to put 20% down, means he's saved up $80,000. Plus, he says that he has an emergency funds and he has no other debts. It means he has paid his car off or he's driving something that's affordable. He sounds like he's probably out of school. So I think this person's done very well for themselves. But to so let's the first thing I'd say is by what the numbers say, if you're buying 400,000, putting 20% down, which is financing around 320,000, and he's got a looks like a good interest rate of around 6.25. So his principal and insurance is principal and interest on that is just under $2,000, $1,971. Now, he says if you add your taxes and insurance with that, it goes up to $3,000. Now, that's a lot. If you have in this area, if you have a $400,000 house, I would guess that the insurance, the taxes, city, county, all that would be less than $3,000. And then your homeowner's insurance, depending on credit, how far you are away from a fire hydrant, let's just say 2,500 is a pretty decent average. That's only, that's less than $500 a month, which would bring that payment around 2,500 versus 3,000. But if you're in a place where your taxes are that high, that may be the case. Or on you could have a HOA of $300 or $400. So it could be a reason it's up that high. But the first thing I would say is that if it was this area, the payment would be a lot lower than that. So just to break down the funds, though, if you even go with a high, 3,000 divided by, his average income is around 12,000 gross, and that's what we go by. This person's at 25% of debt compared to his income, which leaves him a lot of residual income or a lot of money left over after his paycheck. For savings and, for all of us, the grocery bills are the same, bread costs the same for somebody making $1 million a year or 10 cents a year. So, but I would say, this is an easy case. This is not even close for me to have to think about. I absolutely think this is affordable. I think he's way ahead of the game, or she's way ahead of the game. To have your $80,000 saved up plus an emergency fund is very, very good. And no other debts. It tells me you've had done all the savings. You, my friend, are in a great spot. And to me, this would be on a low end for you, honestly. So let's dive into the comments and see what they have to say here. Let's see here on Riz 3. Very first one, should be fine. Just don't remodel your first year unless you have the funds. Okay, there you go. And Chadwick 979 said, thanks. That's definitely not in the cards. And I'm going to tell you, I think we get some decent advice and some crazy people in these comments. So this is a pretty good one here. We'll jump on down to Army Sharnigan. Just use my VA loan and we'll be closing Tuesday. House is $450. Had seller pay my closing costs and buy down my interest. Got a 5.5. Really didn't answer any of the person's questions. Just said it was just threw their scenario out there. Estate Gate says, look at some 300,000 houses. And they don't say why or anything. I don't know why that person would say that. Like I said, the affordability, like for Fannie Mae, he's way under whatever you call them, not guidelines, but way under the kind of the ratios that they set for you, which is a computer driven. But anyways, the 300,000 houses make no sense. But and then here's somebody else. What have you been paying in rent? Should work out. Worst case scenario, you could rent a room if things feel tight. I guess, with 20% down at worst, you could sell it too. You could do that as well, or put some stranger in your house. Wonder what they want to know what they paid in rent. So make sure the jump is not too high, because lenders do that. We do make sure the difference between rent and your mortgage payment, we do look at that. It's not a determining factor at all, but we do. Another lender this is from No Quarter 7657. Wonder if they mean no quarter, like they don't have a place to stay, or if they don't have an actual quarter. But anyways. Another lender or pay down points ahead to give you margins, like pay ahead to get the amount down to 5+% rate. In the end, if you live 8 years or more, you'd be way ahead. So I won't call that our mushroom section. Like if you've done a bunch of mushrooms, that might be what you'd say right there. Sin Snacks, no drama. This person had a lot to say, but they brought up a good point. In the second paragraph there, they put, if you're purchasing a new build, your mortgage escrow payment will only have the property taxes based on the property value before the house was built, because they only have the previous year value. So you need to overpay in your escrow the first year until the new property values come out and include, in your home. Basically, what she's saying is, it's true. Like when a builder builds a house, they build on a house, but the property taxes for that year is owed. It's only on the lot. It's not, because it hasn't been evaluated with the new property that has been built onto that. But Here, what we do in our area is the title companies collect what we think it'll be assessed at. We know the assessed, the tax rate, and we know what they're purchasing it for. So we can say, okay, well, based on this amount, this will be what we think your taxes will be assessed at next year, or whatever. So that way they're in the escrow, they get it in the escrow account properly. We don't do it you don't go build say $1 million house and pay a $1,000 tax bill because that's lot only. We know that would come up way short and wouldn't do that to the customer. The customer would, first of all, we could tell the customer 100 times, but when that bill comes due, there's a good chance they're not going to remember that conversation. There's so much going on when you buy a house. So you just get it right and get it in there the first time. So, but I thought that was a interesting point.
Yeah.
Down evidence kindly.
Yep.
Y'all pay a lot for your houses.
Wow.
Awkward train 1584. If that is your only debt, you're absolutely fine. I agree with that. Even if it wasn't their debt, I'd still probably agree with it. They're doing very well. For us, the earlier purchase with a lower down payment made sense because the purchase came along with a huge quality of life increase. There you go. Let's see. I'd want it to be under 30% based on my personal experience. That comes from comfortable to something, 627. Now, if comfortable to would have done the math, they're at 25%. So that's what I'm saying. It's really low. Here's a line. We'll finish it up with this one. I would just recommend keep your overall expenses low. Don't go crazy with furnishings in the house. Make sure you have a healthy emergency fund, which they did say they had an emergency funds. Avoid all other kinds of consumer debt. You should be okay. I'm always a fan of no debt, like that advice. But yeah, this person's doing very well. I think the reality check is yes, this mortgage is affordable with your finances.
Excellent. Sorry. It was a lag. Excellent job. I love that. The mushroom section. Got to write that down.
Yes. We need some sections in there. When you go to Reddit, it's like I don't know. It's like before I would give advice, I would at least put some pen and paper to it and some thought to it. You know what I'm saying? They're just out there on mushrooms and winging advice around.
That is precisely why I like Reddit. Because again, I didn't see anybody in there. This is what I like about it a lot, is that nobody's being mean. They're just giving their advice, and if it's good, great. If it's not, they don't know any different. I mean, that's kind of where that's coming from. But it made me think of something. And I've never, in all the years that we've done business together, when I recommend, lenders, Rodney's included in that, and he does such a good job at helping people. What I don't know as a realtor is where a lot of people stand on their financial wherewithal. Are they economists, or they resist looking at their bank statement? Most of the time when somebody's getting ready to buy a house, they're pretty financially savvy, or they're prepared at any rate. My question to you is, based on this Reddit thread, you run the gambit of how much you have to teach people how things are versus what they think they are. Wouldn't that be true? I mean, how do you do that?
Well, I think what it comes down to is when when a client comes in or applies, we look at their information and we just try to see what's the best option for them. Like, it's like, I ask you, how much are you wanting to put down? And it's anywhere from 0% to, should I put down, 500,000? Like, I was talking to a guy yesterday, he's buying 2.3, and he only wanted to put 20% down because he wanted another 900,000 to do a repair, a remodel. I'm like, $900,000 remodel, that's like a whole house.
Yep.
It's like, so it just depends. Everybody's different. It really is. You just figure out what that person needs. And there's some, and there's some truce or some kind of middle ground with everybody. Is most people right now want a fixed rate payment. Like, a non-fixed rate payment hasn't been popular for a long time. They don't want any prepayment penalties and no surprises, just some simple things like that. But everybody, it's all kind of, you look at it and kind of assign it based on their personal thing.
And I'll bet you that you do. I bet, and this is just an industry question. I've always been interested. Where you're going to get the biggest variation, I suspect, is first-time home buyers, right? There's some of them that are pretty well read, and they've done a little bit of homework and know what they're getting into. And then there's other folks that really don't know. I mean, and it's not their fault, I mean, they never had to do it before, and so I bet you the spread on the knowledge gap on that is pretty wide. I'll bet.
Yes, you can get like, we had a customer call us yesterday that, the way I would put it is they just kind of call us and more or less they say, I'm in your hands. I would love to buy this house right here, and gave us an address, so it's up to us to figure out, hey, what's there for, can they afford it? Which way's the best go? And then you present them the options. But yeah, you got some that just kind of come in and say, I would love to buy this house, and others that say, show me the difference between an interest only and an arm and a fixed and whatever, and they want to see all the products. So it can vary.
And I can give, this is our show, and I can give a testimony of what I'm about to say is, I've been working with Rodney for 12 years, at least 12 years now, 12 or 13. And we've been working together that entire time. And for all the people that he's worked through on helping buy a house over this 12 or 13 years, we've got I believe it's 100% close rate on time. 100%. And the one time, I think there was one that slipped, and it wasn't he didn't create that. That was actually a buyer thing. So if anybody's, I was just going to say, if anybody's looking, Rodney's information is he's easy to find in the description box, but I'm a testimony that 12, 13 years in a row of 100% closings on time, and that's really good. So thank you for that. So,
hey, I appreciate you. Yeah, we closing on time is a big deal. And there's times it's a bigger deal. At times it's the most important thing in the transaction, and then there's other times that it's always important. But, whew, man, if you're the first of 5 or 6, it's but that's what we do. That's what we do. We try to, we know there's a time limit to it, and that's why all of our processors and underwriters and everybody's all crazy. You have to be crazy to be in this business.
Who signed me up for this? Yeah. I tell you what, it's important is when when the moving van is sitting in the driveway. That's when it's important. I am telling you.
Listen, moving van, animals, people are pregnant, mother-in-law. I mean, man, it's all of it. It's all of it. I'm telling you, you can't get more important than a moving. And the thing about it is, moving stinks, right? And if you don't just bite the bullet and hire a mover, you've asked a bunch of friends to do it. And then, you can't be late with your friends, right? Like, there's only beer and pizza is only good for so long. So you got to get out, you got to get closed and get out there and get moved in on time. And, because you've asked 50 people to show up or whatever it is, so.
This is just a quick story. Last year, Rodney, I had a transaction. We call them deals. It sounds a little gauche, but it's what it was. We had a deal last year that we had to time a home sale and a home purchase and a woman's pregnancy.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
was like, first time I went down to talk to them about their listing, and she said, this all has to happen before I give birth. And I was like, when do you do? Jeez. And it was, wow. And
Yeah.
Ange has asked the question, what's the percentage of on-time closings? 100%. That is verified.
As a company, we're very high. There is, and a lot of times, Andy, there's closings that move, and it's for various reasons. Sometimes there's 10 days notice of completions that aren't finished yet. Title work could have some issues. The sellers could have issues with repairs. I mean, lending is only one of the many reasons that loans don't close on time, because a lot of loans don't close on time, but most of the time it's not the mortgage company. It's maybe title issues, or a lot of them go really smooth, but some close for a lot of different reasons.
Well, this is where I can toot my own horn a little bit. Is part of the reason we're closing on time is I get my guys ready, meaning on the contract side, I'm kind of a prick when it comes to paperwork.
Well, I mean, so let's say that I met the brand new Andy Elliott 25 years ago without having the extensive training from that great DeSalms team. If I caught the Andy Elliott just out of real estate school, I mean, there's all, people just forget stuff, and people get stuff scheduled and do a great job and say the home inspector just don't show up, I mean, or the appraiser goes and does it and gets sick. I mean, I've had anything could happen in these deals where, you could end up getting a second appraisal or all kinds of stuff,
Yeah, it does. But being on time, I think that's part of being a good team. So dipping into the next, I just thought this was an interesting article. It was what it is sorry, whoops, there we go. Not your parents' housing market in 4 ways. 4 ways things have changed in the title of the show today is The New Normal. What is the new normal? I did mention Angie there. So far, we've always moved with beer and pizza and possibly tequila involved. Uh-oh. So the 4 things that have changed here, they are kind of fun to talk about. These days, younger and older generations view the dream of homeownership very differently. Nearly 70% of all adults over 65 believe the American dream is still possible, compared with just 39% of those under 30, according to Pew survey. Housing costs appear to be the major driver of young adults' skepticism, a problem that's been years in the making. I would say, even I'm a little bit, I don't know how to, I'm just going to say it. A $700,000 house there's quite a nut to crack there every month for that. And if you're a first-time home buyer looking at $700,000, that's pretty significant. So it is. Home buyers are older than ever. So in 1981, the average home buyer was 31 years old. In 2024, 56 years old. I wonder why that is. Nest egg? Probably. In the 80s, the typical home buyer was in their early 30s. By 2024, the age had risen to 56, a record high. Baby boomers, guilty, ages 60 to 78 now represent the largest generational group of home buyers, accounting for 42% of their buyers between July 23 and June 2024. That surprised me a little bit because of the existing mortgage rates. That surprised me. Even more striking is the contrast and how each group paid. Roughly half of the older boomers, age 70, 78, paid in cash for an entire house. skipping financing altogether. On the other hand, 95% of millennials financed their purchase, and the 40% relied on family and friends to help with the down payment. That's a kind of a surprising number. In terms of down payment, I think I've asked you this before. What's the most common amount of down payment now? 10, 20%, 5%,
Yeah,
10.5%?
I mean, I would say 20 if you said the most common, but it's all over the board.
Yeah, really? Okay. Share of first-time home buyers is an all-time low. That doesn't surprise me at all. In 1981, the market share of first-time home buyers was 44%. Now it's 24%. And I will admit that of all the calls that I get, it used to be close to half that I would get. It'd be, hey, we're just starting to look, and you tell us what it takes to buy a house. That's what it would be. That hadn't been the case. This most of the time here in the last couple of years for me anyway. And I get mostly referrals is the way that goes, is people that have been in they've bought a house before, so it's a move up. And it's easier to buy a home when you already own one. We got that because all the equity. Today's housing market increasingly pits homeowners with built up equity against younger buyers trying to break in. But if you can break in, I encourage it. Before 2008, first-time home buyers typically made up 40% of the market. Last year, fell to 24%. The lowest since NAR began tracking in 1981. That's saying something. In 2024, Redfin report found that empty nest baby boomers own nearly 3 of 10 large U.S. homes. Empty nesters, twice as many as millennials with kids. Elevated mortgage rates and a lack of affordable starter homes have contributed to the gap, incentivizing many older adults to stay in place. The share of first-time buyers, you can see that's just tanked. Wages haven't kept up with home prices. In 1984, the average wage was $79,000. In 2023, it's $428,000. The change is 136%. Jeez Louise. Median household income, those were house prices, sorry. Median household income was 420 to 80,000, 260%. So they're saying houses are outstripping that. Look at that.
Yeah, there's a huge gap there.
Jeez, man, that's crazy. Home buyers are competing investors. You had mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, that there's a lot of investors coming in the market, didn't you? Was that a news article you caught or something?
Yeah, we've seen an article. I haven't personally seen it. I haven't seen them, the investors be a big part of the purchase. I haven't seen a lot of purchases altogether. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I haven't seen them getting back into this market.
If there's, I can verify this absolutely having listings, that in terms of investors, they specifically, 56, that's crazy. Capital gains is an issue for us too. I'm going to pause and give this to Rodney. What is it? Sorry. Capital gains is an issue for us too. I hope they're indexed.
So 56, what's 56? What's she talking about?
56 is the average age of somebody moving in. But
I thought that was crazy too.
Yeah, what I'm showing you is the capital gains is an issue.
Yeah, the capital gains, but I thought that was kind of, you had up to $1 million on your primary. You just have to reinvest it into a new property. But
okay.
I would talk to, you're obviously the accountant's going to tell you that.
Got it. So we're talking about investors. What I can tell you is keep doing that. Love your face, but give me a break. Properties that need work are getting a flood of investor interest. I'm telling you that a flood. If it's a house that's move-in ready to go, investors are very quiet because I've got one of each, and it's significant on that. So the percentages in 2001, 1.9% were investor buyers. In 2024, 13.5%. That's amazing to me. Today's home buyers aren't just competing with other families; they're increasingly up against deep-pocketed investors, and some of them are the big boys too. That's what is going on. I mean, that's gone up significantly, and that is it for that. So I just thought that was a number of I just thought that was an um, interesting article on that. Let's
I'm with Angie. I just the whole article. I was just means the thing was that average age of a first time home buyer is in the 50s. I mean, that's crazy.
yeah, I that 56 is, I mean, that's it, and I've had a couple of younger ones that they ultimately they ended up, and we've seen this in articles in the past few months about rent, people, housing competing with rents, that kind of a thing. And I had people start out, they were looking at houses and ultimately stuck with rent because there's a lot of outlay, and they weren't comfortable with that outlay, So let's see, gotta do
Yes.
just one more thing. Because this is a new normal and because that's what the theme in this is, and that's what that last article was about. This particular one is pretty easy to go through, and it really boils down to this. This is where home prices are. There you are again. I have to label my buttons better. Where homes prices are rising and where they're falling. The whole point of this article, and this is where we were talking about when prices started to fall like last year, my projection was that that's going to spread. It's going to spread and be more prevalent across the country. And what has happened is 31 of nation's 30 largest home markets had falling year over year prices from January to January. And as you go down this list, it's the same thing. 42, it increases in February, up to 60 in March, 80 in April, 96 in May, 110. These are prices that are falling from June to June. Now they retreated a little bit and went to 105 in July. All I'm saying is that is a lot of home prices out of the 300 that have dropped. They're falling, those prices. And there's a number that leaves about 100 of them that actually grew a little bit, but that'll spread too. And I guess that's what I'm just saying. That's kind of the new normal, that things are dropping a little bit. Anyway, that was kind of my point on that. Let's see, do we got anything to do? I wanted to bring up one point before we get out of here. And this is, I know what it's going to be. Hang on. This. Here's my little off the top. I thought this was hilarious. And you may not be able to relate to this completely. Rodney, I apologize for that, but it struck me big time. So the story on this is the realtor dumped me. I'm going to read through this. And I'm not making fun. I'm just saying, having been on the receiving end of this, here's my story. So I was in escrow. The terminology seems to be a little bit whacked because they're not in the business. So just bear with us on that. It says, I was in escrow with one of her showings talking about a realtor, but I guess her loss, not mine. I don't know where that went. But I'm free now to take my time, really exaggerating that. This person saw over 30 homes, 13 from her showings, meaning she set appointments for them 13 times. 17 in open houses without her. She said this this buyer submitted 4 offers. 1 was accepted. A home did not meet my expectations during the inspection, and the sellers did not want to fix anything or provide credits. I canceled and decided to go back to the market. The reason I wanted to tell this story was there's a category, and I just love them all, but it's up to us to kind of teach people when they're just entering the market. And sometimes what will happen is you'll get a call and somebody will say, I'd like to look at homes in Nashville, which is scary right off the bat. And you say, what's your price range, whatever that is. And they'll say, this is what they'll say. I don't know exactly what I want, but I'll know it when I see it. And then they'll say, I'd like to buy a home, but it's got to be within 5 or 7 miles of the center of Nashville, right? And hopefully on the airport side of the city. Well, if you were to drop a pin on Google Map and do 7 miles, that's like seems like the entirety of Middle Tennessee. I mean, it's bigger than you think. And so 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when I was still taking that, and I didn't know how to answer the question apparently on, what are you looking for? They started sending me listings, and because that's what will happen, a new buyer will send me a list of listings, and I've trained them, just send me MLS numbers and I'll set up the showings. And on this one particular set of buyers, they sent me the MLS, and you never know what you're getting into until I put it into the MLS and see where they are. Well, it turns out, if you don't know Middle Tennessee, I'll do my best to describe it. There was a house beyond Lebanon, which is probably, I don't know, what is that, 20, 25 miles east of Nashville. Then there was one in Watertown. And then there was one in Las Casas, which is down below Murfreesboro. And then there was one Bell Buckle. Bell Buckle. And they all wanted to see this on the same day. It would take 6 hours to do that kind of a thing. And so the moral of the story is I have gotten better with having people. The first thing I ask them is, what's the location? And they'll say, east part of Tennessee. And I said, that's not going to work. If it's Murfreesboro or if it's whatever, we have to get specific. And so, but I was committed. And so we looked at houses that day, and it probably did take 5.5 hours for 6 houses. And they did not see what they wanted. So no reason this person got dumped. I'm just saying, 30 houses? Jeez.
Yeah, sometimes it sounds like the realtor that got dumped got a raise, honestly.
I tell you, the story didn't go the way I wanted, but I'm telling you that happened, and it's, that was tough.
Yeah, 30 showing, 30 houses and get dumped. That's a tough one right there.
And
That's
she's
a
happy
lot.
that, and now the buyer is free to take their time. You just go right ahead,
Yeah, think about if that was during the crazy time where you didn't even have a chance to look at it, to evaluate. You didn't even, they said, what was it? One guy was saying they wasn't even taking offers, or you couldn't even see the house unless you made an offer.
Yeah,
you couldn't even walk in unless you wrote a contract on it. I was like, it's just
you had to write an offer contingent upon viewing.
But the good thing is, but honestly, that she shouldn't be doing a lot of her stuff online. You could rule. You don't have to see 30 houses. Go to 30. Like, you couldn't have liked that many online.
Yeah. What I've learned over the years, and this works really well, is that when buyers start to do that, I help them understand, as you're getting ready to go through the process, the first thing you want to do is put in some windshield time. Drive by the houses first to see if you like the neighborhood, because Zillow had on their advertising, they had one thing right, and when they said the house is only half of it. And that's absolutely true. You can find a really nice house in an area that just simply isn't appealing. You're going to have that. But what I'm actually trying to get people to do when I'm telling them to drive by the houses first is they get a sense of what the distances are. Because people, when they're looking at a map, driving to Lebanon doesn't necessarily feel like a big deal until you're on traffic. 40 going east,
So you have to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so that has worked really well with people that they'll do drive time, and they'll come back at the end of the day, and I'll give them a call. And I said, what do you think? And they go, man, that's way too far out there. Good, lesson learned. And the other thing that is good that happened here recently was having to sign buyer broker agreements before you look at houses. the people the story I was telling you about, they're really looky loos. You know, there were ones that I was too young in the business to kind of demand, we're going to have a buyer broker agreement before you get in my car or before I meet you at houses. It was before I was strong enough to be able to do that. And people would literally use you just to go around and open doors. Did that for forever, with these new policies that's been eliminated. So, and it seems like, did you know that I saw a report the other day? Commissions are on the rise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Take that, buddy,
Yeah.
Mr.
Yeah.
Lawyer.
That was that it necessarily, that was I think that was in the back of their minds. They wanted the real estate commissions to come down because it's higher than the rest of the nations.
Yeah,
But right now they don't care that, a lot of other countries have lower interest mortgage rates than us. You don't hear that very often. So,
yeah,
but right
yeah.
now we're higher than a lot of countries on mortgage rates. So,
That's interesting you would catch that. I caught that in an article. I mean, there's significantly less
yeah.
around the world, like 4%, significantly less. And I think that's why I think probably there's a bit of embarrassment in the current administration. They're seeing that, and it's like, we look kind of stupid on the world stage, I don't know. Do you see, how do you, as we start to wrap up, I wonder, what a great show. Thank you. Riff was perfect. Thank you, Rodney. You're just so good. Um, do you have any new I think that September, we're both guessing probably a quarter cut by Powell. Would you guess that to be right?
Yeah, I would. I'm not. I definitely think a quarter. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a half at all. If he does lower to half, but you never know.
Wait, we didn't. There was somebody hiding from me here. So what we're seeing nationwide is investors building or buying new builds.
That's what they were doing.
Yeah, yeah. What I'm telling you, and my story, what I'm able to relate, is that for properties that need work, that are clearly needing work, I have fielded dozens and dozens and dozens of calls about, can you tell me more about this? And my first question is, are you unrepresented? Because I have to be careful about that by law. But I think my story is, there's a lot of investors that are looking for a good deal. And I'm not saying bad for sellers or anything. They're just looking for deals, like human nature. And there's just a lot of them. Do I see locally that reductions are happening quicker? The answer to that is, and all I would have to do is pull up the MLS locally, and the reductions are happening faster these days. Because if I pull up Franklin, and I pulled them up this morning. These are real numbers. I mean, we're talking 50, 60 days on the market. I haven't seen, except for properties that are just whacked. There's always going to be that category. But for regular listings that seem to be priced correctly, but they're hanging out there 40, 50 days, 60 days, you never see that. And I mean, at least you don't recently. And they are doing some price reductions. Philip, I'm glad to see you, man. So pleased to see you. Say hi to Wendy if this is Wendy using Philip's, whatever. Hi to Wendy and Philip. Yes, they're happening faster. And as it heads into the fall, I think we're going to continue to see that. The unknown part, and this is what I was asking Rodney about, when Jay drops that, now what? If anything changes fundamentally.
I mean, I think it's just going to be the overall effect. It's going to,
Do you think it'll energize the market? That's my question.
yeah, I think that, and constant, doing it more than once, doing it, next quarter. I think it just, you're going to have to prod it a little bit.
Yeah. And to kind of finish up on price reductions, And I know this is a little bit of a broken record, but it's a real world experience. It's happening on a lot of the, I'm a member of a lot of realtor Facebook groups, and some of them you can't get in unless you are a realtor. You know, it's not a secret society, but that's where you talk industry stuff. Who wants to know about that? But there's a lot of listings in Facebook, a lot of posts about do you, and this is the way they'll phrase it, do you have a buyer that's interested in 12 acres, 4 bedrooms, mid-century? Because I've got one for them, and you look them up, and they've been on the market like 60 days. Well, everybody that has that kind of an interest would have seen it by now. You know,
Yeah.
the answer is not if they're not calling me and telling me about it. You know, and so when you see that stuff behind the scenes, what they're really asking is, what can I do to improve the listing? And I'm telling you, outside of the condition of a house, there's only one lever to pull, especially now. And that's just, it's pricing. And now we're jumping back to a time when Terry used to teach, it's time or price. It's going to be a combination of both. It used to be a couple of years ago, it was only time. Put it on the market 3 days later, it's sold. Forget the price, you know. But now it's going to be, you know, when you hit 30 days on the market, the offers start to come in. I can't figure it out. So the answer is, yeah, they're going to be reducing faster, but they're not huge numbers. You know, everybody's being pretty cautious, you know, lowering it $10,000-$15,000, you know, not those big chunks. So that's what you're seeing anyway. I talk too much. Thanks, Rodney.
Enjoyed it.
Had a good day. Good. Thanks for the riff. Phil, Wendy, Angie, California girl. Glad you got your phone fixed. Everybody have a good week. And Rodney, will we see you next week?
See you next Tuesday.
I'll see you. Talk to you then. Bye.